Hello, this is William Hemphill, host of the Faith and Family Matters podcast. I am a pastoral therapist who works with couples helping to reduce conflict and increase communication, and I am also a member of the clergy. I am also a public speaker who talks about subjects like overcoming imposter syndrome and dealing with and building diversity in your relationships, different things like that. I want to talk today, though, from the subject of dealing with the shame of quote unquote not good enough. Dealing with the shame of not good enough, which I often say is the driving emotion behind imposter syndrome. And I want to share a little bit about dealing with the shame from my own story in life. So, some of you may know or may not know that before I went into ministry and into chaplaincy and to counseling, I was an engineer that worked in corporate America. As a matter of fact, I am a proud graduate of the Georgia Institute of Technology, Georgia Tech. I'm a rambling wreck from Georgia Tech and a heck of an engineer. I like to say, though, I moved in from fixing things to working and healing and helping people to heal by moving into ministry and into counseling. Well, one of the things that I often struggled with is I moved from a field that was much more lucrative financially into a field that wasn't very lucrative financially. In other words, I received my master's degrees in divinity and in mental health counseling from two of the fields that may not necessarily pay a lot of money. And because of that, one of the things I often struggled with was shame. I'd often feel shamed because I would see and hear about my colleagues making tons of money, probably having nice savings accounts, nice retirement 401ks, going on vacations, different things like that. I actually saw a colleague at the football game the other day. We used to work in the same place. We're about the same age. He may be a couple years older. One of the things he asked me, he said, "Hey man, have you retired yet?" I was like, "No, I have not retired, but I am doing fulfilling work." But it's things like that that would often make me feel ashamed of myself or not good enough because I'm sitting here thinking, hey, I should have more money in my bank account or my savings account or different things like that because I went to this school, Georgia Tech, where some stats say that 1 or 2 out of 10 people are millionaires. Some crazy amount, it might even be more than that. People generally do well from that school economically. So I would feel shamed because of this. And the shame was so strong that I'll be honest, for years, I didn't show up at a lot of alumni events or at football games or different things like that because I felt like I didn't belong. And that was because of the shame of not feeling good enough, something that often lies to us as people. So I wanted to tell you that story just to let you know that, hey, we all feel shame at times. And here's the lie of shame: it can make us think that we don't have value as people, when the truth is we have a lot of value as people. And so I want to talk for a couple seconds about some things that I've did and am doing to wrestle with that emotion of quote unquote feeling not good enough. So the first thing was this: I had to recognize I had my own journey. And I say that to everybody else: recognize we have our own journeys. My journey was not to stay in corporate America and move up the ladders to middle management and senior management. My journey was not to open up an engineering business that helped people deal with software, different things and stuff like that. Heck, my journey was not even to be moving to becoming a sales engineer and different things, because I remember actually trying to get in those positions right before I was blessed to find other opportunities, i.e., get laid off from a company that eventually laid off 60 to 70 plus thousand people. I had to recognize that I had a different journey, and it was a journey that God gave me. And understanding that my purpose is to help people spiritually and emotionally heal in all sorts of areas of life, I had to move in different ways and get different training in ministry and in counseling and psychology in order to help people fulfill my purpose, help people and fulfill my purpose. So, one of the things to understand is that we recognize that we all have different journeys because we're all different. Here's the second thing I recognized. I understood that I had my own unique purpose, talents, and gifts. Unique purpose, talents, and gifts. So, I'll say this another way. I like to say I'm a church boy. Well, I was raised in the church. I may have told you stories about my father being a policeman and a pastor. My mother was a praying woman, so I had been in church all my life. Here's how strong it was. When I went to college, I intended not to go to church. I was going to stay away from church. Short story from that is that I was recruited by someone who was in the campus ministry. Actually, I was trying to follow a pretty young lady. I was trying to get to know her. She didn't give me the time of day, but she got me to the campus ministry. And from there, that's where I claimed my faith. I like to say that's where I knew the Lord for myself. And that's when I began to walk in those things. But here, understanding my purpose, talents, and gifts, why that's important is because I had been around church so long and observed so many ministers, I picked up a lot of things. Like I have a pretty natural gift in speaking. Um, it just is because I've observed, I've done different things, and by this point, I've done a lot of sermons and I've spoken in quite a few places. That's part of my talent. That's part of my gift. That's part of my calling. And here's the thing to understand about that. When we operate in our talents and gifts as people, whatever those gifts are, we start to feel a lot better about ourselves. And here's a secret, even in understanding that. A lot of times, our gifts are something that we do naturally that often seems very easy to us. For example, I can't remember, I was hearing a story about an athlete the other day, professional athlete. I really wish I could remember the name, but one of the things they talked about having a late start in athletics, but they were naturally gifted. Like they could pick up how to run, how to jump, and all these things. They weren't necessarily taught those things. They naturally had that ability. And so what coaches did was refine that ability in the course of this person becoming a better athlete. We all have talents. We all have gifts. And one of the things when I've talked to people and in counseling, even in career counseling, I say, hey, let's try to find out your talents, your gifts, and let's try to pursue them and build excellence from them, because that way we can walk in who we uniquely are and can feel good enough at what we do. So that's the second thing that I did in dealing with the shame of feeling not good enough, was understanding my own unique purpose, talents, and gifts. And that's what I encourage all of us to do. Number three, gain awareness and understanding behind your own decision making. Gain awareness and understanding behind your own decision making. Another way is to take responsibility for your decision making. So in life, all of us make decisions. Some of the decisions we make, we are proud of. Some decisions we have made, we are not so proud of. What I often talk to my clients about and what I often reflect on myself is I sit back and say, why did I make this particular decision? What was good about it? What was bad about it? What was I thinking at the time? And if it's a decision that didn't go the way I wanted to go, I'd say, what can I learn from this decision so I can make better decisions the next time? It's important for us to gain awareness and understanding of our own decision making. So, like going back to my story, one of the things I gained awareness of as I sat back was I made a decision that after I was laid off from corporate America, well, actually, before I was laid off from corporate America, to start to pursue ministry. And I did that because I felt that was where my talents and gifts were. And that's how I could help the most people and feel like I would live a life of meaning and service. And so when I understand that, it makes a lot more sense for me to make the decision that I did make and to own it. And so that's what I encourage people to gain awareness and understanding of decisions you made and take responsibility for decisions you made and learn if they didn't fall the way that you wanted them to go. So, number 4, dealing with the shame of good enough and how to overcome it. Find a community that can support you when you take off your mask. Find a community that can support you when you take off your mask. Here's why that's important. One of the biggest things, the biggest challenges I feel that we have as people is that we are scared to be our authentic selves. We are scared to be authentic selves because we have been judged, we have been ridiculed, we may have been persecuted, we may have been punished, or whatever it may be. We picked up the messages from youth that it was not okay to be our authentic selves. So, in order to find safety, we have often learned to put on masks. I'll give you an example. Way back when I was interviewing back in the day in corporate America, one of the masks I put on was I had a set of goals that I would tell people in the interview session that I might not necessarily agree with. I would say, yes, I plan on going to get my master's in business administration or in finance or something like that. And once I'm done with that, I will go do this and I would love to be in senior management. Now, this was occurring at the same time that I was wrestling with a call to ministry. So part of it was I had on a mask. How many of us are wearing masks in whatever environment, whether it's our marriages, our relationships, our families, our jobs, our schools, whatever it is? How many of us are wearing masks and scared to be our authentic selves? Here's the truth of the matter. So long as we have on that mask, we're going to feel not good enough. Because the truth is when we're putting on a mask, we're telling ourselves that we are not good enough. I want to say that piece again. When we put on a mask, we are telling ourselves that we are not good enough. And that is the furthest thing from the truth. Now, why I say it's important to find a community where you can take off the mask is because all of us want to be loved for who we are. So whether that's your family, whether it's church, whether it's a group of friends, whether it's some people, whoever it may be, find a place where you can take off the mask. Because I realize every place is not safe. It's unsafe to take off the mask in our family sometimes. I have to be honest, it's unsafe to take off the mask at church sometimes. Find a place where you can be safe. Notice I'm not saying perfect, where you can be safe, even where you can wrestle, but you're being your authentic self. That gets me to my next point. One, two, three, four. I think this is point five. Learn to live authentically without the mask. One of the biggest freedoms I had was when somewhere in the last year or two, I actually saw some folks from Georgia Tech. Give you a little secret about us at Georgia Tech. If you're in the state of Georgia, especially around Atlanta, if you see somebody wearing tech paraphernalia, they probably went there. We don't have too many sidewalk fans yet. Hopefully, we're getting more and more for our sports. But I remember talking to this person, and we were talking about when we went to school at Tech and what our majors were and what we're doing. And I was just honest. I said, hey, man, yeah, I worked in engineering, some project management for about 11 years. Then I went on a transition into ministry and into counseling. And I owned the fact that's what I did. And because I could be authentic with myself and didn't feel shame, it created doors for other conversations. We were sitting in the weight room just having fun, chatting about things and stuff like that. And so being able to be my authentic self and take the mask off allowed me to be free from that shame and say, this is who I am, this is where I am, and this is how I walk on this earth. And so living authentically without a mask allows us to get away from shame. Here's another one. Lean into your personal faith. Lean into your personal faith. That's one of the things that I've had to do over the years. And I've had to learn to lean into my personal faith, my faith in Christ, being my authentic self, embracing my experiences, reading and studying and developing my own understanding and theology about how God works. And I've had to learn to be comfortable in that. And here's the thing about that. I say why leaning into faith is important because I don't think the same way I did 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. I call myself a person of faith, but I do believe that God's been doing some work in me and has shown me different things. And because I learned and I've walked with experiences and stuff, sometimes that means being authentic and disagreeing with other people who may have the same faith. And that's okay. But that's why we lean into our own personal faith and understanding of what God is doing in our own lives, because that is a part of the journey and understanding that God molded us, made us, brought us into different places, gave us unique gifts, talents, so on and so forth, so we can do something and make a difference in the world while walking authentically. And then here's the last one. Give and receive love and grace. In order to deal with the feelings of not good enough that might show up at times, is learn to give love and grace. Personal critique. As I look around on social media, YouTube's, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, whatever the social media things you may use, there is far too much judgment and criticism of people for anything that someone says online. I saw something the other day when someone was talking about how they had their testimony. Notice it, their testimony of how they changed their diet so they could live healthy. This person made a transformation for their own health. And then people started criticizing them about their change. One person criticized them about their change. Another criticism tried to criticize them and say, well, you don't think that just because someone's heavier, they aren't valued as a person? That wasn't what this person was saying. Why I say all that to say we got to give more love and grace, man. We're all human beings trying to navigate in this world. And we can disagree with people. Shall I say without hatred, disagree without being disagreeable? Learning to give love and grace So, like in this situation I just talked about with this person, one person criticized them because they thought you should have had more value when you weighed more. Another person criticized them because it was like, well, you don't have enough value because you don't eat the way I want you to eat. Man, this person was just making a transformation for themselves. I am so glad that there were more people who gave that person love and grace and celebrated them. We all need to be celebrated at times because we all have value. We all have people that love us even though we don't always recognize it. And we all have the capability of giving love. So I say that as the last point, giving love and grace to others, but I'm also going to say it this way: give love and grace to ourselves. Give love and grace to ourselves because we are not perfect. So that means, hey, if you're changing your lifestyle and, trying to adjust your diet and you blow it one day and eat 3 cheeseburgers and a dozen donuts, that was me at one time. So I can't do that. I'm way too old. But when I was young, I could do stuff like that. And you miss the diet on a day, it's okay. Pick it up the next day. If you find yourself complaining over and over and over and over about stuff, I'm going to say that's me now. Step back and say, hey, what can I find to be grateful for? I actually have to do that. I notice when I start complaining a lot, I say, okay, let me step back and see what can I be grateful for because God has blessed me with so much. And then have grace to ourselves, knowing that we are not perfect people. I asked this question the other day when I was doing a seminar on imposter syndrome to a group of therapists. I said, what would it be like if we gave ourselves the same unconditional positive regard and care that we give to our clients? How would that affect us mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, and even physically? Let's show love to ourselves. So, in wrapping up this podcast real quick on dealing with the shame of not good enough, the points: recognize that we each have our own journeys and let's walk and accept our journeys, the good, the bad, the ugly, the indifferent, and so on. Let's walk our journeys with love and grace, getting healing if we need healing at some points. Number two, understand that we all have our own unique purpose, talents, and gifts. We are all fearfully and wonderfully made. No two of us are alike. One of my old pastors said, when he was talking about marriage, he said, if both of you were alike, one of you wouldn't be needed. None of us are alike. And I like to say this, we're each uniquely designed to bless somebody that somebody else would not be able to bless. Number three, gain awareness and understanding around our own decision making. Learn from our mistakes, understand why we make our decisions, take responsibility from our decisions, and grow and accept our decisions. Number four, find a community that can support us and our authentic selves where we can feel free to take off the mask and just be open and real. Uh, the next one, live authentically without a mask, because as we live authentically with who we are, we will find that we make a difference in our own lives and the lives of others, and we will feel more than enough because we are living true to who God has made us. Then I say lean into your personal faith, understanding that that is a journey. You'll have times of faith, you'll have times of doubt, you'll have all these different things, but understand that's a journey also. And then finally, I say give and receive love and grace to others, but also more importantly to ourselves. These are just some of the steps that I have taken and that I still take to deal with the imposter syndrome that has shown up at times in my life and the feelings of not good enough. If you want to know more about how to work with anxiety and imposter syndrome in your life, you can look me up at faithandfamilyempowerment.com. If you would like me to come speak to your company, to your business, to your church, or whatever else to talk more about this topic, please go to my website at www.williamhemphill2.com. WilliamHemphill2.com. I thank you so much for joining me. I hope this has been a blessing to you, and I encourage you, continue to live out your authentic self and know that you're fearfully and wonderfully made and loved by God and loved by others. And I always like to close with this at church or wherever else. As you've been blessed, be a blessing to somebody else. Take care. Have a wonderful day.